All right, I should be live. There's a lot of questions as to whether I am or not, but hopefully you can help me answer that by letting me know in the chat if you can hear me and see me. And of course, if you can't hear me or see me, that's a problem. But if you can, letting me know would help us get things started. And of course, we have a lot to talk about tonight because, well, if you can't tell by the thumbnail, this is the war. What we're talking about tonight is exactly what everyone's been expecting, but maybe it doesn't look exactly as you expected it to look, which is why we have to have these conversations in order for us to, well, move forward and be on the same page when it comes to being better prepared. So, while we're letting everybody get in here and while I'm finding out whether or not you can actually hear or see me, I do want to mention that Midway USA is the biggest supporter of the channel. Thanks to them, I can get out here, do live streams like this one, provide you with this information, give you some things to consider when it comes to your own preparedness, and hopefully, I don't know, just help motivate you to be ready for whatever may come. Now, I do see people in the chat with the 5x5s flowing in. And of course, these live streams are directly supported by magicprepperbeef.com. If you're looking for shelf-stable, long-term survival-grade beef that's freeze-dried, seafood, ribeye, New York strip, filet mignon, expensive beef product. This is not something that's cheap for anybody who's just starting out, but if you have a well-stocked, robust pantry and you want to add legitimate steak to it that'll last just about forever on the shelf, make sure you check out magicprepperbeef.com. Use the code MAGICPREPPER to get 15% off. And like I said, this stuff is not cheap by any means, but it is very high quality, and it does taste good as long as you use salt. And you should have quite a bit of salt on hand because you're prepared. And salt's very important. In case you didn't know that and you weren't around for all these conversations we've had about it, you need some salt. Now, I see some good people in the chat. We have Single Dad in Prayer. We've got Patriot Preacher 43 with the 5x5. We have videos saying howdy, and I say howdy back to you. John Doe 1776 5x5 as well. It sounds like things look and sound good, or at least let's just say they sound good and the visuals are correct. I don't want to go to the point of saying everything looks good on my end. Let's be honest. So, we got some things going on here in the country, and before we get too caught off guard or too carried away when it comes to anything, let's just say a little bit more egregious regarding this war situation, I do want to mention that there is a storm watch going on that everyone should be aware of because we do need to prioritize the home front. We are worried about domestic issues here. These are the things that are most likely to affect us. And USA Today is reporting that you should go into hurricane mode now for Helene, which is expected to lash Florida as a Category 3 storm this week. Category 3 is no joke. It will be the biggest storm to make landfall in the U.S. this season so far. A brewing storm in the Caribbean Sea is forecast to strengthen into a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico over the next few days and make landfall along the Gulf Coast as early as Thursday, which is where I grew up actually, on the Gulf Coast of Florida. So make sure if you live in that area that you're getting things ready to go. And just so everybody can see it, this is the map that they're putting out, the prediction map right now. Gives you kind of a decent idea as to where things are headed. And this is something you should be aware of, especially as someone who wants to be prepared, because these are the most practical scenarios that we prepare for. And then the next part of this conversation goes into the other things we prepare for that are a little bit more questionable as to how they'll turn out, right? So, wanted to make sure you're aware of that, especially if you live in Florida or in the Gulf Coast. You should be prepared and ready to go when it comes to a hurricane heading your way. So, what up, Deadly Throat Punch? Good to see you. Glad you're here. John D, 5x5 in New Hampshire. Glad you made it, and we appreciate everybody up in that area still tuning in and trying to see what's going on in the world because I know it gets very crazy up in that region. So, we appreciate you. Now, what's going on? Tonight's live stream was titled "The War Has Already Started Here, and I Hope Prepping Will Pay Off." And the reason that I titled it this way is because there is a war of subversion. There's a war related to fifth-generation warfare that's happening right before our very eyes, but many of us might not be aware of it because it's not as obvious as to what's happening in places like Ukraine, Gaza, and these other war zones that are currently being very publicized. But in our situation, the things are happening under a veil. They aren't necessarily as overt, but they are occurring right now, and you should be aware of why these things are happening and how close we are to having things turn into what we're witnessing in other parts of the world. So, Thrival Survival, I cannot pull something out of my hat, although maybe in the future I'll work on that for you. So, let's talk about this Trump assassination attempt that just recently occurred, and a letter that was recently found, or let's just say leaked to the press regarding the evidence of this particular case. And this is why I want to start paying attention to this more. This isn't about in my opinion, this isn't about exactly like what happened here in the sense of this particular scenario. The aftermath is teaching us quite a bit. And one of the questions you should be asking yourself is, why was this released so quickly thereafter? We have plenty of examples of other similar scenarios having manifestos and all types of different associate paraphernalia that had reasonings for why the person acted the way that they did, and those things were not released very quickly at all, or if ever. And yet in this scenario, we have this letter being released almost immediately. Suspect Trump assassin Ryan Routh denied bail after letter revealed in court filings. Okay, this is, I believe, from the 23rd, today. West Palm Beach, federal prosecutors are poised to bring more criminal charges against Ryan Routh, the man accused of stalking former President Donald Trump and plotting to assassinate him while he golfed. As it stands, the 58-year-old Routh faces a maximum of 20 years in prison for 2 federal firearms charges. Assistant U.S. Attorney Mark Despoto said Monday that additional evidence collected in the wake of Routh's arrest, including a handwritten letter detailing an attempt to kill Trump, supports a far more serious charge. Despoto said the government will convene a grand jury in hopes of indicting Routh on one count of attempting to kill a major political candidate, punishable by life in prison. The federal prosecutor gave U.S. District Judge Ryan McCabe an overview of new evidence against Routh during a pretrial detention hearing on Monday. His presentation included anecdotes from an e-book Routh wrote in February 2023, a year and a half before investigators say he aimed a semi-automatic rifle across Trump International Golf Club near West Palm Beach. And just so you know, I go to some of these local news outlets every so often because they tend to provide some additional information you don't necessarily get from the larger conglomerates. It's just something I've noticed over the years of doing all this research, and it's something that I would advise you to do. If something's happening in a certain area, sometimes touching base with the local reports on that will give you additional information you won't receive otherwise. Okay? In the book titled Ukraine's Unwinnable War, and I believe that's actually abbreviated to a degree. I believe the book has a lot more words associated with it, but this is what this article is saying. Routh said he felt partly to blame for having elected a president who ended up being brainless. I am man enough to say that I misjudged and made a terrible mistake, and Iran, I apologize. Now, this is a part I want you to pay close attention to and to be very aware of here. Iran, okay, made a terrible mistake, and Iran, I apologize. Why is he apologizing to Iran? Well, of course, we had the situation with Soleimani during the Trump presidency, where that Iranian general was taken out. But there's more to this I need you to pay attention to. But this is odd, and this Iranian connection is something that we might see a little bit more of as we go throughout tonight's conversation, which is why I'm letting you know that this is the war. Like, what's happening right now isn't just levels of insanity or extreme politicization of everything in our lives. This is what's happening. Like, this is the thing that everybody's worried about. Like, it's already occurring. Okay? You are free to assassinate Trump as well as me for that error in judgment in the dismantling of the deal. No one here in the U.S. seems to have the balls to put natural selection to work, or even unnatural selection. So notice that this person was trying to tell Iran that it was their job to do this and that they were welcome to do it to him as well. Interesting approach considering how things turned out in the future. Despoto said an unnamed witness gave investigators a collection of other handwritten letters containing sentiments similar to those in Routh's book. The letters were in a box Routh dropped off at the witness's home in North Carolina several months prior to the assassination attempt. The witness said he opened the box after learning of Routh's arrest. Inside, he found ammunition, a metal pipe, miscellaneous building materials, tools, 4 phones, and various letters. One addressed to the world said the following. Now, just keep this in mind. This person, for some reason, made the arbitrary decision to not open the box or look in the box until after hearing about this situation. Is that coincidence? Possibly. Is that questionable or maybe a little sketch? I would say so, but it's something that we should at least take in as a data point. This was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, but I failed you. I tried my best and gave it all the gumption I could muster. It is up to you now to finish the job, and I will offer $150,000 to whomever can complete the job. This is the part of this letter which makes me believe that somebody or some groups of people within some of these organizations, such as the FBI or the Department of Homeland Security or any of these other questionable federal law enforcement entities, allowed this to be distributed to the public. And you have to question why and for what purpose. And when you question why and for what purpose, what logical conclusion can you reach? Not based on your emotions and not based on your bias of ideologies or political beliefs, but based on what this could accomplish. What other than, because what more did people need in the public, eye of opinion regarding this person's potential actions? Like, we all already knew what he was going to do and what he wanted to do. This doesn't necessarily change that for us, but it does possibly incite others to consider joining in this operation. It does possibly incite others to try to figure out how they could get paid as well. It does cause a lot more damage than it does benefit, which is why you should be questioning this. These things are being released on purpose with intent, and we know for a fact that there are people complicit with these crimes within these organizations. That's just a logical conclusion at this point in time. I don't think that every single organization at the federal level is completely filled with the same level of corrupt people. I think that there is a mixture of people within each organization and bureaucracy that possibly find themselves in some sort of a civil war type scenario right now within their own organizations based on some of these findings. Because I guarantee you could find people within the FBI or within the Department of Homeland Security who would not have agreed with allowing these things to be released, which we're going to talk about here in just a second, because the former Attorney General has a lot of strong words about why this letter was released. Either way, everyone from across the globe, from youngest to the oldest, know that Trump is unfit to be anything, much less a U.S. president. FBI agent Christopher Hull said Monday that the letter was neither signed nor evaluated for a handwriting comparison. Rao's team of public defenders, Renee Shavola and Christy Militillo, quoted parts of the letter that Despoto left out, several of which appeared to portray a failed assassination attempt as a publicity stunt meant to jolt people out of their complacency. Possible, I guess, but this person did attempt it, so this is very coincidental, especially based on the timing of the witness who had the box of stuff that just happened to open it right now. There's a lot of coincidences here for all this to line up just so perfectly. But that's their defense at this point in time. While I sit at the big house, I'm willing to pay the price, etc., Savola read out loud. The writer said his actions would make a few more people stop and think about how wonderful our democracy is. And here, of course, is the letter itself, very rudimentary, very handwritten, and everything else related to it. Okay. Routh was in jail on Monday in a blue jumpsuit, all this stuff, okay? Now, there's some things down here that I wanted to touch base on. We know he was at the place for 12 hours, camped out in his little sniper nest, getting ready to pull off the attack. We also know there were some other things going on regarding him trying to escape and having this escape plan, which was very interesting as well. So here's what was in the vehicle, which I found to be indicative of a certain level of planning, of organization, we'll call it. Investigators used this information, the person who sent the photo of the license plate in that gave them what they needed to find this person, right? They used this information to arrest Routh in Martin County. Inside of his Xterra, a Nissan SUV, agents discovered 2 additional license plates, 6 cell phones, one of which contained the Google search query, how to travel from Palm Beach County to Mexico, 12 pairs of gloves, a passport, and a handwritten list of venues where Trump was scheduled to appear. And do not forget that Donald Trump's golf trip that day was not public information. This person somehow knew he would be there and knew he'd be on the course. There's a lot of people complicit within these agencies at this time that are, at least in my opinion, of a criminal intent in the sense of trying to be involved with these potential attacks. So, Ruth was in West Palm Beach for one reason and one reason only, Despoto told the judge, to kill the former president of the United States. And of course, now they're trying to rack up larger charges against him in order to keep him in jail for longer, in order to charge him with larger crimes other than just these firearms crimes that he's been charged with so far, which those have, strong penalties, but this person needs to be locked away for good until they get the treatment that people like him usually get in jail when we have a lot of questions about some of their prior activities, right? So this is what's going to happen. But either way, this person had all of the intent to escape and all of the organization and all the ability to escape. I mean, he's switching license plates. He's got additional burner phones. He's got a passport ready to go, a handwritten list of venues where Trump was going to be in case he needed to, make another attempt or who knows what. All I know is that this person had a lot of planning in place, which is interesting because what they were doing was very simple in the sense of planning and simple in the sense of how they tried to pull off the attack. Now, don't forget, this person also spent, I believe, about a month in that region of West Palm Beach, making multiple trips back and forth to Mar-a-Lago and to the golf course, which means they were definitely doing some kind of surveillance and reconnaissance in order to understand exactly where they needed to be and when. But the information about where Trump would be on that day at that specific time was not publicly available. So do not forget that point as we move forward. Now, just to jump back in the chat here for a second. Kevin Ramsey, thanks for being here. Thank you for modding. I appreciate it. I know this is newer for you, but you're doing a great job, and I appreciate you being here. Cherokee Survival, always good to see you. We have Gregor Zamina. Has there been any release of Trump's golf party? You know what? I don't know, to be honest with you. I wonder if any of them leaked it. It's very possible. And honestly, this is the age we live in. Let's be very clear. Anyone around you that may have the incessant need to have clout, right? Or to gain their own popularity off of your coattails or whatever it may be, has an incentive to tell other people about what you're doing, right? And so that is something that's very, very possible. So, Attorney General Barr, the previous Attorney General, is very upset about this. And rightfully so, because like I said, this letter being leaked on its own is a problem. The letter itself points to a lot of other problems. And this person who was involved with the shooting, speaking directly to Iran, is very interesting, especially considering what we're going to talk about here in just a minute. But first, I want to touch base on this. Okay, former Attorney General William Barr says he is dumbfounded that the Justice Department released a chilling letter penned by would-be assassin Ryan Wesley Routh on Monday, calling the decision rash and serving no purpose other than to risk inciting further violence. Routh is a suspect in former President Donald Trump's second foiled assassination attempt. The DOJ obtained the letter from a witness who says they received it inside a box delivered to them by Routh several months prior to the assassination attempt. See, this is all very coincidental. The box contains several handwritten letters as well as ammunition, among other things. One of the letters addressed Dear World, and we already went over that. I was dumbfounded that the DOJ made public this morning the contents of the letter that Ryan Routh left with an acquaintance prior to the attempted assassination of former President Trump, Barr said in a statement to Fox News Digital. The letter calls on people to finish the job of killing the president or killing President Trump, attempts to rouse people into incendiary terms to do so, and offers $150,000 to anyone who succeeds. There is no apparent justification for releasing this information at this stage. And that's my thought process as well, which is why you should be questioning why this was even released at all. Not to mention the fact that, where'd this guy get $150,000? Is this just a made-up number that he came up with, or does he have a reason to believe that there may be the ability to earn $150,000 because of doing said attack? Maybe this is something that was on the table. Maybe this is something that he was made aware of before and possibly even recruited to do with this monetary sum on the table. I'm not sure, but there are some things that we should keep in mind. Him talking about Iran, him talking about money that he clearly didn't have, according to all the public information we have so far regarding his personal finances. But all these things are starting to get very interesting. And let's not forget, this document being leaked was not so that you and I had access to this information so that we could be better aware of what happened or what's going on. This is specifically done with the intent to cause additional harm here in the future, in my opinion. This is specifically with intent to cause harm to President Trump. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Okay, which, by the way, for our foreign enemies is an excellent concept for them. A, it removes the idea of having this person back in office who they may or may not like having to deal with. And B, it creates a huge amount of chaos and instability within our country. All of a sudden, it's pretty much the easiest way to create insane amounts of chaos throughout the entire country with one attack, right? Like, what other type of attack could you think of that would create that much chaos on that low of a level of an attack vector, in the sense of people with rifles setting up in certain locations to try to take a shot? Like, this is very elementary attack style that's happening right now, and it's being very close to being effective, right? And we know what happened during the first assassination attempt. We were inches from that exact scenario. So, just wanted to mention that AG Barr from the previous administration felt that this was a bad idea, and I agree, and it really makes you wonder why this was released, which we all know why. These becoming very obvious. They're very straightforward in their plans. DB Cooper, I appreciate that you agree with me. And of course, if you don't agree with me, feel free to let me know as well, because I'm not right about everything. I'm not some sort of, wonder boy think tank genius. I'm just a guy who understands how to read. At times can look between the lines a little bit, and I try to do additional research to develop an informed opinion, and this is what I give to you on Monday nights. And especially replay crew, make sure you check in. I appreciate you guys always being here. Okay, do you see they caught a large cache of military-grade weapons, including RPGs, just on the other side of the border fence? Lincoln Pork sent that to me. No, I did not, to be honest with you. So if you are aware of where you got that information, please feel free to share it. You cannot share links in the chat, but you could point us in the right direction if you know of what outlet you were referring to, okay? So I do want to just touch on this real fast because I know some of you, especially like the gun crowd here, are very interested in this type of stuff. This is the rifle that was being used by Ryan Routh. And I mean, it is just, it's disgusting, right? This is just literally a piece of shit, right? So, but here's the thing. The guy's a felon. He's going to have a hard time acquiring firearms. The scope is probably mounted with hose clamps that have then been covered by tape, maybe to cut down on glare. You see the roll of maybe cardboard on there, or maybe it was like a Cinnabon roll or something that he attached to the end to, I guess, reduce glare, or maybe make his eye relief easier for him to be comfortable with. I don't know. This is the rifle he was supposedly using. Very, very, just very basic. But the thing is that this is what a lot of my buddies who work at gun stores and a lot of people I know just personally based on their experience with working in those industries, like this is the type of thing that's typical to find on the streets, right? This is something that you would buy out of the back of a trunk. And like, if this is all you can get, this is all you can get. And for people who commit crimes, you know, in the street capacity, like this is the stuff they're going to use because they can get it without there being any issues or paperwork or background checks or anything like that, right? So just keep that in mind. It's something, but at the same time, just keep this in mind too. People are running around trying to commit presidential assassinations with this piece of crap. So don't feel bad if you have to use, you know, budget-friendly firearms platforms to get by with while you're struggling a little bit or times are tough financially. Like this guy thought he was going to change the world with this thing you're looking at right here. So I guess maybe there's something to be said about that. Okay, so why did I want to emphasize Iran and the $150,000 so much? Why was that something I wanted to touch base on so hard, right? Here's why. And this is something maybe some of you aren't as aware of. Some of you might be, which I can appreciate. But the part of the whole point of me doing these live streams is to help inform people who don't have time to go through all this information, right? And if you're one of those people, I appreciate that you're here. And if you don't mind, hit that thumbs up and subscribe and all that stuff, because I'm just really bad about saying that, and I always forget to. So, did you guys hear about the teams, right? The assassin teams? So, here's the thing. This is another piece of information that doesn't actually do any good. All it does is damage. What do I mean by this, okay? Because a lot of people are looking at this saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. This is crazy, and this is nuts. And if, you know, this information is most likely true, but what I'm trying to tell you is, first off, it's very indicative and strong evidence that we're within the war right now here stateside with these types of groups operating, trying to take out our political candidates. Like that's, I don't know how much more of a war you could expect when people aren't going to invade North America at all, or especially the United States, with what, D-Day style boats landing on the shore. Like that's very unlikely, but this is definitely likely. However, this being released is more likely damaging than it is helpful, because these teams were like this in a way is like telling these teams to stand down for their safety, right? Like, let's get into it so you can be a little bit more aware of what it is I mean by that. Congressman says Homeland whistleblower claims 5 assassin teams hunting Trump, okay? Representative Matt Gaetz, a guy who, I'll be honest with you, personally, like there are some things I think he's done in the past that had some validity to it, but as a human being, like I just don't really jive with this guy. He gives me the wrong vibes, right? So there's something about that, but just getting past that because I just needed to get that off my chest. Said Thursday that a senior Homeland Security Department official approached him as a whistleblower shortly before the second assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life. And alleged U.S. officials are aware, or alleged, I guess, who can read anymore, that 5 different assassination teams are pursuing the former president. Gaetz told Just the News editor-in-chief John Solomon during an interview on the Human Events daily television show on Real America's Voice Network, that was a mouthful, that he believes 3 of the teams are foreign-inspired and 2 are domestic-based. Trump was the subject of a second assassination attempt over the weekend. We already went over all that. I had a senior official from the Department of Homeland Security in my office before the second assassination attempt, saying that what he has assessed is that there are 5 known assassination teams in the United States, 3 inspired by other governments, 2 that are here that are known domestic assassination teams, Gates said on Human Events Daily. And with that, this individual was coming to me concerned that the force protection around President Trump, even prior to that second assassination attempt, was not sufficient for what it needed to be. And the coordination at that level, at the dignitary protection level, is like the bare minimum that we have to do to keep our presidents, our presidential candidates, safe while they're on the trail, he went on. 5 teams that we know are targeting Trump, he clarified, and so that raises real questions about why certain teams are being pulled off of the Trump deal detail and put on, for example, the Jill Biden detail. Now, first off, this person got this information and decided to go public with it. Maybe that was the whole plan to begin with, right? Maybe they did it to gain some level of notoriety. I don't know. But what I do know is that they knew these teams existed. So clearly they were tracking them or surveilling them or doing some sort of reconnaissance, right? And then this person comes out and tells everyone about it. So look, I'm glad I know about it now because it kind of shows me where we're at in the sense of how dangerous things are becoming and how real this whole attempt on Trump is becoming, like how much more egregious it really is than just these random lone wolves who are acting crazy, right? But by releasing this information, I am sure the trail is either cold or it was a warning to those teams that they were no longer in the green or that they were compromised or that there was some reason they probably needed to stop, right? So look, if these teams don't have any success because of this, great. That's an excellent thing. However, I fear that there's a little bit more at work here than just somebody being told about it and then telling the public because it was the right thing to do. Now, what else is interesting in this story? And look, this is me giving you my honest opinion based on all the research I do. And not everything I research comes up in this live stream because I can't. There's just not enough time to go through every little nitty-gritty detail that I read over for hours and hours preparing for all of this, right? But this is my logical conclusion at this point in time based on everything that's happening, okay? These teams were outed for a reason, not just so you and I had the benefit of knowing about them. Because what does that accomplish, right? Let's be honest. What does that actually accomplish? Other than maybe setting up the narrative? Oh yeah, there's the teams that they told us about. Well, great. That's never been used against us before ever, has it? So please keep that in mind as new developments occur, as we move further down away from this information, because this is how they set up the stepping stones, right? And this is how they tell people to cool it off. Oh yeah, hey, they're on to you. Better go back into hiding for a while. This seems like an unnecessary security risk, in all honesty, especially when it comes to the teams who are probably surveilling and tracking these assassination teams for months or years or whoever knows how long. They probably just had their case scrapped right in front of their eyes. So be aware of that. But here's something else I want to talk to you about in this particular article, okay? U.S. authorities. This is very important. Remember we talked about how Ryan Routh was all, hey, Iran, I'm sorry, and if you want to assassinate me, feel free. Oh, and by the way, if you want to assassinate Trump, please feel free, right? And then remember how Ryan Routh was also like, hey, if you do it, though, I'll pay you $150,000, even though I don't have any money. Okay, why would all that be a problem? Because of this little thing that just happened here recently we were told about. Now, it happened in July, but I don't think a lot of us were paying much attention about this at the immediate time that it happened. But here we are. U.S. authorities have charged a Pakistani man, Asif merchant, with working with Iran to attempt to hire a gunman to kill Trump before Merchant was arrested on July 12th, one day before the first assassination attempt against Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. They have not disclosed any other plots publicly involving the former president. What are you talking about? I'm a little confused. Who's this? Asif merchant? A Pakistan? And why is this in this article? I mean, we're talking about Matt Gaetz talking about assassination teams. And then right here we talk about how we don't want anything to happen to Joe Biden. We just need to make sure the right people are on the right campaigns. We know Trump's campaign needs better security because the envelope of risk is a little bit higher over there and all this stuff, right? Okay, got it. And then it immediately just goes into, by the way, we charged a Pakistani guy back in July, which is like 2 months ago now. But we charged him because he was actually trying to hire a gunman and he was working with Iran. And the gunman was going to be hired specifically to kill Trump. Well, that seems like relevant information, doesn't it? Okay, well, now I need to know a little bit more. Why are foreigners coming here and working with some of our greatest adversaries to hire gunmen to kill Donald Trump? What? And why is this included in this article? Okay, well, let's find out. What happened with Asif Merchant? Because I think that seems pretty important right now, right? Thrival Survival, I have a Blaster 5000 squirt gun. Does that help? Yes, it does. I expect it to be loaded with bullet bourbon, and I need you to easily aim it right into my mouth from about 200 yards away so I don't have to get up or move while the enemy is trying to spot me with a drone. Thank you. Now, we're going to talk about Asif Merchant because this gets kind of interesting. Things get weird here. Pakistani national with ties to Iran charged in connection with foiled plot to assassinate a politician or U.S. government official. Oh, okay. Well, the plot was foiled. Nothing to see here, right? But I wonder, had he talked to anybody else or maybe worked with anyone else within the amount of time he was here in the United States that were plots that weren't foiled? Because maybe we don't know every little plot he got involved in. Let's just talk about what he was here for. Asif Merchant, also known as Asif Raza Merchant, was indicted yesterday, and this is from, September 11th, okay? This is not, very old. Was indicted yesterday with attempting to commit an act of terrorism, transcending national boundaries, and murder for hire as part of a scheme to assassinate a politician or U.S. government official on U.S. soil. Law enforcement foiled the plot before any attack could be carried out. Merchant was previously arrested and charged by complaint in July 2024. Merchant was ordered detained and is currently in federal custody. Okay, talks about the terrorism charges, the dangerous murder for hire plot, and then here we'll go to what he was actually doing and how they caught him. Okay, in early June, Merchant met the CS in New York. Okay, the confidential source, and explained his assassination plot. Merchant told the CS that the opportunity he had for the CS was not a one-time opportunity and would be ongoing. Maybe someone who could earn additional money while working with these people, aka Iran. Merchant then made a finger gun motion with his hand, indicating that the opportunity was related to a killing. Merchant further stated that the intended victims would be targeted here, meaning in the United States. Merchant instructed the CS to arrange meetings with individuals whom Merchant could hire to carry out these actions. Merchant explained that his plot involved multiple criminal schemes: stealing documents or USB drives from a target's home, planning a protest, killing a politician or government official. At that meeting, Merchant began planning potential assassination scenarios and quizzed the CS on how he would kill a target in various scenarios. Specifically, Merchant asked the CS to explain how he would target or how the target would die in different scenarios. Merchant told the CS that there would be security all around the person. Well, how many people can you think of that constantly have security all around them? Okay, Merchant stated that the assassination would occur after he left the United States and that he would communicate with the CS from overseas using code words. The CS asked whether Merchant had spoken to the unidentified party back home with whom Merchant was working. Merchant responded that he had, and that the party back home told him to finalize the plan and leave the United States. In mid-June, Merchant met with the purported hitmen who were in fact undercover U.S. law enforcement officers in New York. Merchant advised the UCs that he was looking for 3 services from them: theft of documents, arranging protests at political rallies, and for them to kill a political person. Merchant stated that the hitmen would receive instructions on who to kill either the last week of August or the first week of September, after Merchant had departed the United States. Okay, I know you're connecting dots right now, right? You're doing it. I don't have to do it for you. You're doing a great job. Merchant then began arranging means to obtain $5,000 in cash to pay the UCs as an advance payment for the assassination, which he eventually received with assistance from an individual overseas. On June 21st, Merchant met with the UCs in New York and paid them the $5,000 advance. After Merchant paid the $5,000 to the UCs, one of the UCs stated, "Now we're bonded," to which Merchant responded, "Yes." The UC then stated, "Now we know we're going forward, we're doing this," to which Merchant responded, "Yes, absolutely." Merchant subsequently made flight arrangements and planned to leave the United States on Friday, July 12th. On July 12th, law enforcement agents placed Merchant under arrest before he could leave the country. Okay? Now, listen to what states were involved in the sense of FBI offices who worked on this case. FBI Dallas, Houston, Tampa, Boston, Washington, Chicago, and Albany field offices investigated the case. The New York City Police Department, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Texas, and the U.S. Customs and Border Protection provided assistance. Sorry, my mic went out for a second there. Now, because I punched it, to be honest with you. I was getting really hyphy, so I was just, bow, got to go there, Mike. So this person made their way around the whole country, basically, right? Recap, they went to Texas, they went to Florida, they went to Massachusetts, they went to, I assume they're saying Washington, but I think that's Washington, D.C. most likely, but it could be Washington State, but most likely Washington, D.C., Chicago, and Albany, aka Illinois and New York. This guy got around. Not to mention, he was in Florida. If the Tampa field office was working on this case, there's a reason why. He must have had some sort of imprint in Florida at some point in time. This person was in places where this other person was also at. We should be aware of that, and we should understand that he might not be the only one. This is one person who got wrapped up with undercover agents who was working directly with Iran, who got arrested for trying to hire people to kill politicians and to start political protests and to steal information from political candidates. This guy did all the things that would constitute an act of war in many ways, specifically working for Iran directly. And you have to wonder if Ryan Routh literally apologized to Iran directly in a book he wrote and told them they could assassinate him if they'd like, as well as Donald Trump. And then, years later, or a year and a half later, decided to, by the way, you're right, let me go fix the problem I created, I guess. Go do that exact thing himself with lots of planning, lots of cell phones, to communicate with, I don't know, who's that guy back overseas who's going to ensure that you receive the payment that Asif Merchant was talking about? Oh, don't worry about it. Surely no connection there. But this guy with 6 cell phones and all of his stuff and everything else he had planned in the sense of additional license plates and a passport and how to get to Mexico and how to escape and all that good stuff. This guy also wanted to talk about how he would pay someone $150,000. And I'm wondering, like, well, he didn't have any money according to the FBI and according to everybody investigating the case right now. Why would he just throw out an arbitrary number like that? Or maybe he was offered $5,000 up front, and once the job is done, maybe there's another $145 on the line. I don't know, but all I know is that this guy getting arrested, and then this guy pulling off that exact scenario that this guy was looking to hire for, should raise some questions and should give you some things to consider, especially because, I don't know, we're like in a war right now with Iran when it comes to our proxy Israel, and we have this entire scenario unfolding with Russia, which is a direct ally of Iran, and we have, well, I don't know, a very tumultuous political cycle where these countries do not want Donald Trump back in office. We know that. They're saying it publicly at this point. But here we are, right? So, listen, it doesn't just stop there. But this is a lot of stuff. This is a lot of rabbit hole stuff that you have to consider, because things don't just happen magically regarding this stuff. Like, it just doesn't coincidence itself into existence. This was very well organized and very well planned, but executed at a rudimentary level. Why? Because it's the easiest to separate yourself from. No liability and clean hands is the name of the game when it comes to the way these people operate. You cannot eliminate your political rivals from within the state and have dirty hands after, right? And you cannot do that as a foreign entity and have dirty hands after. So these are the way these things are being developed right now. This guy literally was hiring someone to do exactly what Ryan Routh did. And Ryan Routh was literally apologizing to the country that that person was working with and then offering money that they didn't have in order for someone else to do the job. Oh, and by the way, needed 6 cell phones, right? There's a lot more to this that we don't know yet, but this is what we know. And although we know there's 5 assassination teams going after Trump, apparently, which probably aren't anymore, right? Like I said, in a way, this was maybe a warning to those teams from those who like to leak this type of information. Like I said, always ask, what's the benefit of leaking this information? And if it's not, for me, the public to understand better, then why was it leaked, right? There's a lot more going on here. And there will be more going on. And this is very concerning, okay? Now, we also have some other weird stuff. Zach Maruda, I am fired up and I am focused because there's a lot of weird things happening in our country. And I really want to drive the point home that, like, this is the war, the shadow war, whatever you want to call it. It is here now. It's home. And it's not just politics. There's other things that we have to discuss as well. So, here is also what has happened recently at some Donald Trump rallies. I don't know the validity of this, but I do know that it's interesting to say the least. Donald Trump supporters stricken with painful mystery illness after sitting on stage with former president at a rally. This was published on September 19th, so 4 days ago. And I found it very odd. Thousands of people flocked to the event in Tucson, Arizona, which was held on September 12th, but some ended up in the hospital. Reports suggest around 20 people fell ill at the rally. Myra Rodriguez, an ardent Trump fan, said her eyes were burning. She told NBC affiliate KVOA that she started to feel the sensation after stepping outdoors. Initially, Rodriguez thought she was experiencing allergies, but decided to go to the hospital when she got to her home near Phoenix. She revealed doctors thought she had been sprayed with something because her symptoms seemed to match. But days later, she said that her eyes were still hurting. It hurts a lot to open my eyes. Rodriguez says she's resorted to using a cold compress on her eyes. She has since revealed her vision has started to improve. But Rodriguez is not the only person who went to the rally and experienced symptoms afterward. Another woman claimed her neck was on fire, while her siblings said the pain he experienced was unbearable. Others have claimed they experienced poor vision. Trump's team told the outlet they were investigating the cases. Now, this is not something that I'm going to dive too hard into because there's a lot of speculation and not much information. But what I will say is that the media, in kind of like a blitz campaign right after, had ran a bunch of stories about doctors who came up with their idea of what probably happened, and none of it was nefarious, of course. But with everything that's happening, assassination teams are after this guy. We have people trying to hire gunmen and all types of stuff in our country working for Iran right now, getting arrested. We have all these things happening, assassination attempts on his life at every month or so. So something like this going on, a chemical of some sort being used or something along those lines, is not very far-fetched. Even something as out there as Havana syndrome or something along those lines, I wouldn't be surprised at this point in time. However, the doctors that have come out and tried to make their arguments are saying things along the lines of, oh, the lights that they used had too much UV and these people's eyes got burnt. And, there was something wrong with the air conditioning and there was some sort of airborne particle that was toxic or caustic, right? Is that possible? Probably, because I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to argue with it. It's very possible, I assume. But is it likely based on context of everything else we've been witnessing for the last few months? I would say I'm looking at it from a skeptical point of view. I'm looking at it from the point of view that this is something to be concerned about rather than just writing it off as very bright lights and bad air conditioning. So, another data point for you in order to be aware of it. Florida Sheepdog 1, the enemy is already here and it isn't who you think, it's domestic. Well, I think it's a little bit of everything, Florida Sheepdog 1. See, domestic is one thing, but then you have to also factor in the fact that some domestic works directly with foreign, right? So these are the things that are happening right now. And if I don't get to your super chat tonight, I apologize. I am trying to hit on a lot of information very quickly, and I might have missed some of the super chats that came through, which I'm very sorry for. But I did see Batshit Crazy came in with $1 earlier, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. And then I also had, let's see here, Florida Sheepdog 1. Kevin Grip became, gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. You new members who were gifted memberships, guess what? You get to be at the private live stream tonight. It starts at 9 p.m. or 9:15 p.m. right after this live stream, Central Standard Time, that is. And the link will be on my channel page. You go to community tabs, and there will be a link posted there for you. And you can come hang out. We just discuss whatever comes up. It's not a paywall for good information. I share all of that for free here. It's just my way of saying thank you. So, we also have the Secret Service bill that was just passed. Now, this is something that I found interesting because
Here's how I look at this. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because it's not super important. Secret Service Protection Bill passes House unanimously after Trump assassination attempts. The bill passed 405-0. Wow, you can't pass anything like that these days, but this one sure did fly right through, right? The House of Representatives has passed a bipartisan bill increasing U.S. Secret Service protections for major presidential and vice presidential candidates after 2 foiled assassination attempts against former President Donald Trump. It passed with an overwhelming unanimous 405-0 vote, a rare show of bipartisanship in Congress. Now, this still has to go to the Senate and then to the president's desk, but it did pass the House. Here's what I want you to understand. This is just to allocate additional resources to the Secret Service. They're saying that they don't have what they need to properly protect all these people. The problem here is that I guarantee you they do. And they're just not allocating the proper protection and the proper equipment or resources to the right places. So understand that this bill is in many ways, well, it's a couple things. First off, they're campaigning for additional funding off of their own incompetency and failures. So keep that in mind. Imagine doing bad at your job, right? And so you go to work, you do a bad job, and you lose your company money. And you're like, hey, I'm sorry, like, I made a mistake, and now no customers are coming in, so we're losing money, and people don't trust us anymore, right? I allowed someone's finger to slip through on a fry machine, and now somebody ate a finger and thought it was a French fry. So no one's coming into our restaurant, they don't trust us anymore because it's not safe. So in what circumstance do you think that company says, you know what? I get it. You just need more resources. You need more training and you need more money. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a raise. And then we're also going to make sure that you get more time off so you can rest properly. So you get more PTO, a raise, and we're going to go through and revamp all the equipment in your restaurant to make sure that no one's finger ends up in a deep fryer again, right? That's not how that happens. They might invest in that business or something thereafter, but the person who got the finger in the fry machine to begin with, that person is gone. Like, they're fired. They don't get a raise. But the Secret Service is saying we need a raise, and everyone said, yes, you do. And so they got it, and this should be something you're considering when these things are happening. The other thing to keep in mind is that, first off, everyone voted yes for it. Everyone. Every single person voted yes for it. Why is that? Because, and I'm going to say this in such a way that's going to get you to understand what I mean without having to say everything directly, okay? Everyone who voted for it gets to say, when something bad happens, well, I tried. To be honest, I voted to make sure the Secret Service had what they needed. And maybe we just didn't get it to them fast enough, but I 100% did the best I could to protect our political candidates and our presidents and vice presidents, and we voted for it. And you know what? It wasn't enough, I guess, but you better believe I voted yes on that, so you can't blame me now, right? So, like a unanimous vote, please consider why, okay? Moving on. Let's move over to another vote that's coming up. This one, another thing we don't have to take a lot of time on, but it's something just to be aware of, okay? House to take up new funding bill as some Republicans fear a galactically stupid shutdown. Here's what's going on. The government's going to shut down on October 1st at midnight if they don't pass a new spending bill. They're trying to pass a new spending bill. Trump's mad because they wanted the SAVE Act to be attached to it. What did that mean? It meant that they didn't want non-citizens to be able to vote in the election. Surprisingly, the Congress decided that they couldn't actually get that into the spending bill, so they're going to have to try to pass everything else except for that part. Obviously, a lot of people are upset about that because, we're trying to make sure that this election is fair and trustworthy, but this was supposed to help with that. They're not going to put it in now. Congress is doing this. They'd rather pass a spending bill that doesn't have everything we need just to say that they kept the government open rather than doing what they need to do. So that's why I wanted to touch base on this. There's a possibility the government could shut down on October 1st. That would be interesting during an election season, right? They won't let it happen. I almost guarantee it. And we're going to lose out on the ability to basically verify that people have proof of citizenship in order to vote. So that's what's happening there. Now, these gangs have been taking over more places. Did you know that? That's also part of the war. This is the war, right? That was the thumbnail tonight. It said it big letters somewhere like over here. This is the war. Because it is, and this is what you need to be actually preparing for. You need to be prepared for unrest. You need to be prepared for chaos. You need to be prepared for having to do what's right, and you need to be prepared for dealing with threats to your community, your local community. This is going to be a big one, which is why you need to be very aware of it, okay? Tren de Aragua, they're everywhere. Why do I say it that way? Because I took a lot of Spanish in high school and I felt pretty confident about it. So, first off, Texas. We're going to go to 4 different places tonight when it comes to this gang, so that way all of you good Americans here who want to be ready are aware of their proximity to you based on some of these new reports. Governor Greg Abbott has declared the Venezuelan gang a foreign terrorist organization and asked the Department of Public Safety to create a strike team targeting them. This is from September 18th, okay? We already know who they are. Governor Greg Abbott signed a proclamation on September 16th that declares the gang a foreign terrorist organization. He also directed the Texas Department of Public Safety to mobilize a strike team with state troopers, Texas Rangers, and other law enforcement groups to pursue the gang wherever they are known to be operating in Texas. Declaring the gang a foreign terrorist organization means gang members could face increased sentences for crimes such as distributing illegal drugs. State law also authorizes civil penalties against foreign terrorist organizations. But you know what's interesting about this? You know how they've been taking over apartment complexes? Did you know they did the same thing in Texas with a hotel? Because not a lot of people knew about this, but this is what they do, okay? Let's talk about it. During his press conference, Abbott noted that more than 100 TDA members had been arrested at the Gateway Hotel in downtown El Paso on charges including human smuggling and possession of illegal drugs. Some media reports described it as a takeover of the hotel by the gang. Where have I heard that before? I don't know. The 121-year-old hotel was shut down on September 12th because of broad criminal activity, not because of any specific gang, according to the El Paso County Attorney. The hotel had operated without a valid certificate of occupancy and was the scene of persistent criminal activity, including aggravated assaults, criminal trespass, public intoxication, and burglary, according to the county attorney's office. Police reports note that criminal activity increased in the hotel because of Tren de Aragua. So, understand that they will not admit that this gang is actually doing the things that we're being told they're doing. It's not because of any specific gang. They cannot admit this. Why? Because it shows that they've lost control. That's the honest truth. And that they're afraid a little bit, I think. Do politicians or bureaucrats in Mexico ever turn around to their constituents and say, by the way, this was the cartel that did this. Sinaloa came in and they did all these things and they're bad and we're going to get rid of them? No, they don't. Why don't they say that? Oh, that's right. Because they're worried about their lives and the lives of their family members and all of the other blackmail that the cartel has on them. So that's why they can't say that this is what's really happening, at least in my opinion, because I'm just taking the textbook of how this works in Mexico and applying it here. And so far, that seems to be the most logical explanation for why we can't just admit that this gang is a problem. So let's move on to New Mexico, right? I'm trying to give everybody in the country a chance to be aware of where these guys are going. The FBI watches for Tren de Aragua activity in New Mexico. Now, this is them saying, we're not actually witnessing them do things here yet, but we're waiting for them to be here, which I found interesting because why are they telling us this? Because they know they're there already. A Venezuelan gang known as Tren de Aragua has made headlines for criminal activity in both Colorado and El Paso. The Department of Treasury said the gang has been expanding through the Western Hemisphere over the past few years, and now more members are appearing in the Southwest. We're in the middle of both these states, said Special Agent Raul Bujanda. So to think there isn't a presence in New Mexico would be foolish on our part, from a law enforcement standpoint and for anyone else who lives in our community. Tren de Aragua originated as a prison gang in Aragua, Venezuela. The gang has been recently investigated in Aurora, Colorado, and an apartment complex, and in El Paso, Texas, at the Gateway Hotel. Oh, this hotel just keeps popping up now, doesn't it? There's none of that specific gang activity here. Do we have those gang members in this state? Yes, it's geography, Bujanda said. They do drug trafficking, any kind of extortion, kidnapping, murder, all those types of things because these are the types of things they were doing back in their country where they were established. They come here and try to do the same thing because to them it's an opportunity to cause chaos and to try to turn a profit. The chaos is the foreign mercenary aspect of this equation. They are being brought here. They are being funded and financed and organized here with the intent to establish a destabilization campaign. That's what it's about. It's not actually about them making money. They personally are making money. Their organization is making money. But the people who are actually allowing these things to occur, it's because they want chaos and destabilization. This is exactly what they're looking for. Just so you're aware, by the way, this person said this, and I want you to really consider this because I tried to drive this point home in a video recently. We're in the middle of both of these states. So to think there isn't a presence in New Mexico would be foolish on our part. Does that sound like maybe some people's cope when it comes to their personal state they live in that I've heard people say before. There's none of that specific gang activity here. Do we have those gang members in this state? Yes, it's geography. That's right, it's geography. They're in your state. They're doing stuff in your state right now. Be aware, okay? By the way, what about New York? That's a state. They're doing stuff too. And that's pretty far away from Texas and New Mexico now, isn't it? How bloodthirsty Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua used New York City migrant shelters to build a criminal empire, hiding in plain sight. This was published today. So, just trying to keep everybody up to date as best I can. In little more than a year, a once obscure South American street gang has taken hold in the Big Apple, exploiting the migrant crisis to build a violent criminal enterprise from within the walls of city shelters. Tren de Aragua, blah, 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 we already know all that. The gang, which also peddles a lethal fentanyl mix called Tussie, or pink cocaine, okay, has grown so fast that it has far overwhelmed both average New Yorkers and the city's elite police force. Not every migrant here is here to commit crimes. Not every migrant is a gang member, said NYPD Chief of Detectives Joseph Kenny. But these TDA guys hide very well in plain sight in migrant communities. We aren't looking to grab the food delivery guy, but these guys go so far as to wear Uber Eats clothing. They use delivery bags while they're out committing their crimes. And when we do arrest them, they are very eager to talk about the crime they have committed. But they are unwilling to talk about Tren de Aragua itself. The gang, whose name means train from Aragua in Spanish, now runs citywide theft and robbery crews that have terrorized neighborhoods. Okay? In Jackson Heights, a stretch of Roosevelt Avenue dubbed the Market of Sweethearts has become a testament to TDA's muscle and influence, with vendors peddling stolen items and an open-air red light district that has migrant hookers walking the streets day and night. Lovely. That's New York now. Okay. Well, I mean, they can't possibly be like in the Midwest or anything, right? Wait a second. What? Are they? I mean, I don't really know if I count Chicago as the Midwest, but this is going to get spicy, apparently. You need to know about this stuff because you're an American, most likely. Even if you're European, you should be aware of this because they're coming to you as well, or they're already there. Maybe you're in Latin America, and that's happening to you right now. Either way, this is what's happening, and this is the war. Like, these are the things that are being put into place in order to ruin your life, right? Chicago gangs clash with Venezuelan Tren de Aragua members, blacks against migrants. Okay. That is a catchy phrase, I guess. Venezuelan migrants moving into Chicago's South Side have caught the attention of the city's gangs, with some fearing an impending turf war between local gangs and their Venezuelan counterparts. Does that sound like chaos or destabilization to you? Do you think that would possibly create that environment? When the black gangs here get fed up with the illegalities and criminal activities of these migrants or non-citizens, the city of Chicago is going to go up in flames, and there will be nothing the National Guard or the government can do about it when the bloodshed hits the streets. It'll be blacks against migrants. Tyrone Muhammad, a former Chicago gangster who did 20 years in prison and now runs a violence prevention program, said in a report for the New York Post. The comments come as Chicago has seen an influx of Venezuelan migrants, according to the report, including members of the notorious Tren de Aragua gang. With the arrival has come a rise in crime, locals told the New York Post, while some Venezuelan gangsters have started to encroach on the territory of the city's local gangs. Now, this is interesting because this, I'm about to tell you, is from the standpoint and the perspective of locals on the ground who are current gang members. And I find this very interesting because what they're telling you is honest, and what they're telling you is what you should be expecting no matter where you live. There's been a lot going on with the migrant gangs that nobody's even hearing about. Zach Massey, a local Chicago gang member, told the New York Post, "They be moving in our own territory and robbing people, but they don't get arrested like we do. I actually talked to one on the Translator app. He told me all the things he got going on, how they helped him get a car, an apartment, EBT card, all this stuff. They've given them thousands. We get maybe $400 a month, and they don't even have social security numbers." And that's real life right there. These people are being given the keys. They have a turnkey operation to just start their criminal enterprise in any major city in this country. Oh, here you are. Here's a car. Here's an apartment. Here's free food. Here's thousands of dollars of expendable income. Oh, and by the way, we won't arrest you because you have a protected status right now of being a refugee, right? Like, this is out of control. And the gang members are starting to catch on and getting upset about it, okay? I mean, listen to this. Local gang member Corey Rogers told the New York Post that Venezuelan gangsters will often be seen showing the flag, a slang term for brandishing their firearms. He also showed the outlet text threads that feature local gang members threatening turf wars with the newcomer gangsters. What bothers me is that the Venezuelans are united, Rogers said. The black gangs are too divided and they take each other down. That is a huge takeaway from this. They are organized, united, financed. They have free housing, free cars, free money, free food. They will have an advantage over any of us if they decide to come into our town, because most Americans right now are struggling to put food on the table in order to afford their rent, to pay all their bills, and all these other things. And then these guys are coming in with a free ride, so they don't even have to worry about the rigors of going to work or doing a 9 to 5 or working overtime or working 2 jobs or whatever. They got all the time in the world to go around ruining your community, to sell drugs, to human traffic, to do all types of horrible things right on your block while you're at work just trying to squeeze by. Like, this is literally what's happening. The people who are funding these people to have a free ride, they're complicit with the crimes that are happening because of it. 100%, they know what they're doing. They know why they're here. They know why they're paying them to be able to afford the time required to do all of this. Understand that. It's just the truth. I don't know what to tell you. Okay? Now, we have to go a little bit further tonight. Okay? But there's still more to talk about, because this war that's happening around the world right now is starting to escalate to a different degree of I don't know what the hell is going on anymore. Prepper Now, I'm so glad you're here. I really appreciate you. You're very nice, and I appreciate the modifications that you do. So, quickly overviewing how catabolic this whole thing could go very quickly and how fast everything's evolving. Okay, first off, the U.S. sending small number of troops to the Middle East as attacks ramp up. I've told you this before. I keep telling you this. If we have 2 carrier strike groups there, it's a war. If we have 3, it's guaranteed that we're in the war. Okay. But with 2, we can do whatever we need to do. We did it with the Gulf War. We had 2 carrier strike groups and went in there and did what we had to do. If you have 3, it's like game on. We're there for like the real business. We're sending another one there right now while another one phases out. 2 is the number, and we still are rolling with 2. Okay. The U.S. is sending a small number of troops to the Middle East, the Pentagon said Monday, as Israeli forces and Hezbollah fighters intensify their cross-border attacks. The troops would add to the 40,000 American forces already in the region, including over a dozen warships in the surrounding waters and thousands of Marines aboard ships in the Mediterranean Sea. Pentagon Press Secretary Major General Pat Ryder told reporters about the moves on Monday, saying that given the tensions, given the escalation, there is the potential for a wider regional conflict. I don't think we're there yet, but it is a dangerous situation. Ryder declined to describe the number of troops being sent or what their role would be. Adding to the U.S. military response in the region, the aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman left port in Virginia on Monday, accompanied by 2 destroyers and a cruiser on a previously scheduled deployment to the Mediterranean. The deployment could mean that the U.S. will again have 2 carriers in the Middle East if the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is in the Gulf of Oman, stays on station. The USS Theodore Roosevelt carrier strike group left the Middle East this month and headed to the Pacific after its deployment was extended in order to monitor events in the region. So, we have another strike group going there. We phased 1 out. We're maintaining a presence of 2, which should tell you a lot. And we're beefing up the troop presence there, and there's already 40,000 troops there, and we're adding more. So this whole thing between Israel and Hezbollah and Lebanon is going hot. Real, like, right on time, actually, in case you weren't aware, right on time. And just so everyone can kind of be on the same page as me when it comes to, like, some of the stuff that's happening out there. You guys have got to see some of these warheads that are being used out there, you know? I mean, and people are speculating all kinds of crazy stuff about this, but I just need you to see, this is what's happening in Lebanon, like, right now. Like, this is the stuff that's going on. This is massive in the sense of the size of an explosion and the size of, or the level of damage that can be created by this. This is, like, we're witnessing some insane ordinance going on lately, okay? So, that's Israel, Hezbollah. Now, just to touch base on Russia and that whole scenario as well, you got to be informed. You need to be aware as to why we're prepping for these things. We're not just prepping for a hurricane, although if you're in Florida or on the Gulf Coast, you should be right now because one's coming at you within this week. But we're also prepping for past that, things that are much more difficult to deal with, right? Things that homeowners insurance don't always cover, right? So, which by the way, most people in hurricane, areas don't have flood insurance, and that's rough because that's what you probably need the most. Anyway, humiliation for Putin as unstoppable Satan II missile explodes, obliterating Russia's only test site for the hypersonic weapon, potentially delaying the project for years. Now, why am I telling you about this? Okay, this is the second Satan II missile that has been exploded over the past week, okay? Vladimir Putin was facing humiliation today after his unstoppable Satan II missile exploded, obliterating Russia's only test site for the hypersonic weapon. Satellite images show the destruction left behind by the blast at the Plesetsk site in northern Russia, which partially wrecked an observation building close to the launch site, indicated there may be casualties among rocket scientists. A giant 200-foot wide crater in scorched earth can be seen on the site of the Satan II launch shaft. Now, this is their giant Wonder missile, the one that they want to blow up the entire Western Hemisphere with, right? This is not the only one that has been destroyed. So, first off, they're trying to say that this was like an accidental launch, or not an accidental launch, but an issue during launch, that this was an accident, that something went wrong and this missile exploded during a test and everything blew up and they ruined their entire test site because of it, right? That's what they're saying. However, in this certain scenario and with everything that's been happening, can we really rule out sabotage? Can we really assume that there's not some level of sabotage going on here at this point in time? I think that it's very safe to say that there's a good chance that could be what occurred here. Russia themselves are not commenting on the actual attack itself. They're just saying it happened. They're not saying any details or telling anybody what happened, okay? So, why am I saying this? Why am I bringing it up? Because we also had another Satan II missile exploded by a Ukrainian drone just the same week, okay? Ukrainian kamikaze drone strike struck Putin's Satan II nuclear missiles, prompting huge explosion. Okay? A Ukrainian kamikaze drone strike reportedly struck, it's hard to say that, it's a really rough sentence, Vladimir Putin's Satan II nuclear missile, prompting an apocalyptic explosion yesterday morning. A secret ammunition silo factory at Toropets in Tver region that housed one of the Russian president's nuke missiles was hit by Ukrainian drone, it was claimed yesterday. It allegedly happened just 10 miles from an indestructible 30,000-ton munitions storage site that had been obliterated on Wednesday. A huge explosion was triggered when the Satan II missile was hit, causing locals to panic over fears of a doomsday detonation. The claim that the missile was destroyed came from a Russian Telegram channel, and a news blackout intensified the rumor. Okay? Now, did they blow up a Satan II? I mean, that's what we're being told. And is this the second one within a week? Yeah. Now, was one an accident and one an attack? Maybe. I mean, sure, we can just say it was. But is it very possible that sabotage was involved with the one that failed during a test and that we had a direct attack by a drone on the other one, and we have two of Russia's most prominent new nuclear missiles being destroyed within a week, and expecting that to just not be a big deal, I guess, right? And just so everyone can see, here's a video of said massive explosion. So just to kind of give you an idea of how big this was, like this is big. This is really big. This is at that munitions plant, and you can see where additional explosions start going off in the horizon there. But this is the stuff that's happening right now. Like, this is insane, right? Like, we're witnessing some catastrophic destruction and ordnance being used. And I mean, years ago, if we would have seen something like this, people would have just thought it was the end of the world like that minute, right? Like, I mean, right? But here we are. So it's hard to predict how all that stuff's going. But war in the Middle East is like guaranteed at this point. Like, we're there. The strike group is there. We got 2 of them. We have additional troops. We already got 40,000 in the region. Like, we're doing that. Just so you know, like, we're doing that. Okay? And by the way, I just have to reiterate this. October 7th is coming up very quickly. And a lot of chatter has been going around regarding people trying to remind everyone as to what happened that day. So please keep that in mind, because we have people in this country right now being arrested for trying to hire people to kill political candidates, like that are working with Iran, by the way. Like, this is not like just all coincidental. Like, these things are happening like right now. Peppa D's Nuts says Clown World, and I have to agree. Here we are. Okay, Daryl Calhoun says nukes are scheduled. And you know what? You might be right. Like, we might just be on a calendar at this point in time, and I won't even be surprised. But either way, I'll tell you the other thing. I'm also not going to be surprised if nothing happens at all. If that's the same thing that occurs versus the complete opposite, no surprise from my end. I will be unsurprised regardless of the outcome at this point in time because of how ridiculous everything has become, okay? Let's hear. Heartless04 earlier, sorry I missed you. I have a photo of an illegals EBT receipt. It shows a FS balance of $13,401 and a cash balance of $4,498.85. And I have zero doubts that you're right about that. And it's very unfortunate, but that's the world we're in right now. I'm telling you, think about this, okay? What's one of the things the military has on the civilian population? Logistics and focus of job or mission at hand. What do I mean by that? It means that the military takes a soldier and says, all right, here's room, here's board, here's your food, here's your sustenance, here's your life necessities. Don't worry about any of that stuff. All I need from you is to do this one thing, right? And so that soldier can be very effective at doing that one thing because they don't have to worry about all the other stuff. But as a civilian, I have to work and I have to make sure that I can pay my bills and I have to make sure that I get out and mow the grass and do my laundry or whatever, right? I have to do a ton of stuff just to make sure my normal daily life goes by. And then to be expected to do all the other stuff that a soldier can do while they have all that stuff covered and I don't is very difficult, right? It would make things much more difficult for me. So that's why the military has that specified mission because they can afford that extra time those people need in order to accomplish these goals. But as a regular person, I don't necessarily have that same capacity. But these people from these other countries that are coming in here, and in my opinion, in many ways, appearing to be basically foreign mercenaries at this point. I mean, a chief merchant from Pakistan, he was a foreign mercenary 100% working with Iran, so you can't tell me that some of these people aren't. But either way, they don't have to worry about their job. They don't have to worry about the electric bill. They don't have to worry about their mortgage. They don't have to worry about any of that stuff. In fact, I'm pretty sure most of them even have childcare if they have kids. They just leave them there at the migrant center. And so what else do they have to do? Well, they have plenty of money, so they just go out, do what they want, commit the crime, set up shop, and then they go home and go to bed. And that's a lot more effective and gives them a lot more focus than you or I have to be able to do even just regular everyday life. So that's what's going on. Please be aware. The original OSOC says working and eating and sleeping and working. It takes up all of my time. Yeah, exactly. How would you have any additional time to go set up a organization of any type or any level of resistance or any level of community policing or whatever it might be that you would need to do in order to maintain a level of safety in your community? Good luck. Go back to work. Go back to sleep. Sorry, that's all you got, right? But these people, thanks to the government, don't have to do that. They don't have to live that life. They just have to go, figure out what street corner they want to set up on, right? So here we are. This is where we're at. Freedom of time, exactly, Em. And that's part of the problem. Well, it's been a great chat. Thank you so much for being here. I really can't tell you how glad I am that you all were here tonight to have this conversation. I think it's very important, and I think it's very on the pulse of what's very important right now as Americans. If you are a Subscribe Star member or part of the YouTube channel membership, you can come join me for the live stream here in just a couple minutes. It is private for those to be able to say thank you, right? I do this so I can say thank you to those people. A link to the Subscribe Star just went into the live chat. It's also in the description. But if you want to be in the membership, you can do that as well with a few less perks. And if you don't want to do either, I completely understand, and it's not a requirement. I will never share pertinent, important, relevant information in the private chats that you won't have access to for free because that's not what my goal is here. All I do this for is to say thank you to those people who want to support me directly, and I gave them a way to do so. If you do want to look at discount codes or affiliations or anything else like that I have to offer, you can go to magicprepper.com. That might help you out if you're trying to get yourself some preparedness gear because I do have some relevant stuff on that website. And there's also a link to my Discord there if you want to be part of that network. It does get a little weird and spicy in there sometimes, but you know what? It's Discord, so what do you expect? No, you can't stop now. Here's another super chat for 5 more minutes. The original OSOC, $10. Wow, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it, but I have to get going so I can get to my own private live stream within the next 30 seconds. So I really wish I could keep going, but I also did cover all the information I wanted to cover tonight, which I am very grateful for because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to squeeze it in. But thank you all so much. I really do appreciate it. Anything else you guys need from me, feel free to reach out, do whatever you got to do. But honestly, just keep getting prepared and mentally prepare yourself and think about all these things that we just talked about tonight as things move forward. Because if anything bad happens here in the next few weeks, you have to go back and look at this information and think about how it's related, okay? So I will see all of you awesome members here in just a minute. And besides that, it's going to be it for Magic Prepper.